Dr. Rick Strassman, who's professor of psychiatry at the University of New Mexico, and who got the first permission from the US federal government for more than 20 years to conduct research with human volunteers on a powerful hallucinogen. And he used DMT. And DMT, given to his volunteers, produced really extraordinary results. They recorded their experiences. I won't read all of these out, but elves and alien type experiences were again and again reported by these people who were given DMT on a hospital bed in the University of New Mexico. DMT, as I said, cannot be absorbed orally without a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, but it can be injected, and it works. And that's what Rick Strassman was giving his volunteers. By the way, it's completely non-addictive. I'm not aware of any addictive hallucinogen. More examples from Rick's volunteers. Insect creatures all around there. Again, one of my alien type encounters under ayahuasca had these segmented insect type eyes. Or being in an alien laboratory of creatures that probed one of the volunteers in some strange way. And this sense of just blasting through into another realm and encountering beings there who expecting you to arrive. I mean, one of the very strange examples is where one of these volunteers, under the influence of DMT, meets a being who basically says, "I'm so glad that you've discovered this technology. Now we can communicate more often." A number of volunteers reported that similar experience. Now, is this personal inner space? Or is something else going on here because of the transpersonal element of this, experiences that are shared by many, many, many people? And Rick Strassman, eventually he actually had to give up his research because it was so mind-blowing in the results that his volunteers were meeting the same beings in the same realm. How could that be explained within the modern Western framework of understanding reality? Could it be that they were all getting this UFO imagery from our culture? Maybe they read the National Enquirer or watched, whatever. Could it be that? Well, no, because there's a work done with DMT and human volunteers in the 1950s. Now, that's important because not a single abduction case was reported before 1961. Not one. There were many UFO sightings, but no abduction case. But these DMT volunteers in the 1950s were reporting experiences that are very similar to those being reported by modern UFO abductees. So it's more like the culture is getting the imagery from these visionary experiences rather than that the culture is feeding into the imagery. Furthermore, Strassman's volunteers definitely were not being abducted by physical aliens because they were lying there on a hospital bed in front of Rick Strassman. So does that mean that this was just brain candy, that these experiences were just meaningless hallucinations? And if they were, then how come all of the volunteers were reporting the same experiences? And this leads us to ask, what actually is reality? What is it? And Albert Hofmann, the discoverer of LSD, I think makes a very important point where he says that it's actually a product of two things: the exterior world, the sender, and the receiver, us, ourselves. These two things together with our antennae, our ability to sense reality around us, are essential. But maybe there is more to the exterior world than our senses can receive. William Blake talked about this with his notion of the doors of perception, that somehow we see through a glass darkly, and that if only we could clear our doors of perception, we could see everything as it truly is, which, as he said, is infinite. William James, the brother of the novelist Henry James, was a great psychiatrist at the turn of the 19th, 20th century, and he experimented with nitrous oxide. And it's very interesting because what I've outlined in green here, I think he was so moved by this experience that he said that really we can't have a total account of the universe if we leave these experiences out of the picture. They certainly forbid a premature closing of our accounts with reality. And I believe that is what Western science has done. It has prematurely closed our accounts with reality because Western science is fundamentally highly materialistic. It is concerned with things that can be weighed, measured, and counted. And it dismisses such notions as the soul and as spirits and as other realms. And another point that James makes, look, we're physical creatures. If there is a spiritual element to us, it has to have a physical interface. And maybe we need to be in a different state of consciousness in order to register these experiences. Aldous Huxley, similar arguments that the brain is a reducing valve. It fundamentally functions to cut experiences out, to narrow down reality. Otherwise, we just all go crazy with everything that's pouring in on us. But every now and then, we get a temporary bypass to the reducing valve. Aldous Huxley called the visionary plants gratuitous graces, which give us the opportunity to bypass that reducing valve and see much more than we normally do. Back to Hoffman again, very important model, that we need to start thinking of the brain not as a generator of consciousness, but as a receiver of consciousness. If it's a receiver, then its receiver wavelength can be changed and possibly pick up other levels of reality not normally accessible to us. And Rick Strassman echoes that point, that yes, there is a change in brain function induced by a chemical, and that perhaps what this is doing is allowing us to perceive and allowing others to perceive freestanding parallel planes of reality that we can't normally see with our normal senses. And Rick talks about how most of us, most of the time, are tuned into channel normal, but that there are a lot of other channels broadcasting as well, and if we would like to tune into those channels and learn from them, then we are going to need to alter our state of consciousness. Now, actually, there's nothing in science. Many scientists will tell you that hallucinations are just rubbish, but there's nothing in science that allows them to say that hallucinations are just artifacts of the brain.